San Antonio Hispanic or Mexicans, that's what we are, Hispanic Mexicans, all right? And I am very, very happy to be here today. We've done this more than 15 years, okay? And let me tell you, that meat, I cooked it myself. I did 60 pounds, all right? But I love to do what I do, to whom I'm going to serve it to. Beautiful people that are doing God's work as well. And let me tell you, if you don't know God, you come to know Him. And He will provide everything to you all the way to your journey. Okay? And I can tell you that because I've done it myself. And He says, try me, and I will overwhelm you. And He has overwhelmed us with all these beautiful ladies that are serving this meal for you guys. So we are very happy to be here at this time, and I hope you all enjoy the meal. Okay? God bless you.
Thank you, Hortensia. We had a little bit of a change in our speaker schedule today, and Dr. Muck will explain in just a minute how that came about, but very glad to have Dr. Andrew Muck here as our speaker today. Some of you may know him. He is an associate professor in the Department of Emergency Medicine and the associate program director in the Emergency Medicine Residency, and he is also the director of the Global Health Emergency Medicine and the student-run San Antonio Refugee Health Clinic. Some of you might know him through that student-run clinic for the refugees. But he is also a longtime member of CMDA, and he's been coming to these luncheons for quite a long time, and we're really looking forward to having him come and speak. So please welcome with me Dr. Andrew Muck.
So one thing, can everyone hear me okay? Yes? All right. So one thing, lesson I learned right out of medical school when I first, probably even before that, was I revolved, most of my participation was regarding free food. And so I realized as I was standing there, I was about to commit one of my cardinal sins, which was to miss out on really good food. So I had to run up and grab some food there before I apologize. So I'm very, very happy to be here with you all. There was a little bit of sadness in my heart as I come before you today because I had arranged for my advisor for my CMDA equivalent at Johns Hopkins to come and talk. His name was Thomas Corson, and Dr. Thomas Corson to put him as a mentor, I guess, is kind of underselling what he accomplished in my life. When I was at Johns Hopkins as a medical student, he redefined for me what being a missionary was. He defined for me kind of a career trajectory and allowed me to have a lot more meaning in my work through medical school and beyond. So I had helped arrange him coming out to speak to you all, and then he wasn't, had a family emergency come up and he was ultimately not able to come. The good news is that he prepared me and created my perspective that I'm going to share with you. So what you're going to hear from me is a version of what he would have said in many regards. He just would have said it more eloquently. And he being an internal medicine pediatrician, dually trained doctor from Johns Hopkins, was very well spoken. Instead, you get the ER guy version, which is a little crazier, a little shoot from the hip. Why do I shoot from the hip? It's just fun to shoot from the hip. So it's going to be a little faster, a little loose than you might otherwise have had, but it'll still be a good experience. And I hope that what I'm sharing with you will give you a little glimpse of helping you define your work and your day-to-day with a little bit more meaning. A lot of you who come to CMDA regularly have not seen me here that often. And there's a reason for that. Because when I've come to CMDA meetings, I see a wonderful group of people being really well led, with a lot of volunteers and a lot of involvement. And I literally walked in the door and I thought, they don't need me here. This UTHSCSA San Antonio needs me someplace else, because right now they got this place covered. And so my lack of participation is not meant to be deemed as any way lack of support. I'm so happy with all that I see in this room, the amount of people, the variety of people from different schools and different walks of life. It's just, it's really awesome. And what you guys are able to accomplish here, I'm coming from the Northeast. I told you I've done some training in Baltimore, and I'm originally from New York State. what we're able to do here and the way that we can facilitate and worship together is a lot different than what you can experience in some universities in the Northeast. So that's a wonderful thing. So what I'm going to jump into the talk now. We're going to talk about basically kind of the concept of vocational missions. Is that the meaning that I want to unpack in you, and the conclusion of this talk, and I'll say it right up front so that you know what you're about to hear, is that we're all missionaries. And this isn't one of those feel-good talks about how you just need to keep doing what you're doing and just kind of redefine yourself and feel better about what you're doing and feel like you're doing something. No, you're a missionary. Start living like one. And so with that, we're going to jump into the talk, and we're going to talk about the mission field where you currently are. So what is a missionary? When I say the word missionary, just throw out, what are some images that pop into your head while I get a drink here? When I say missionary, what do you see in your head? Africa, right on, bro. Yeah, what else? India. Awesome. What, anything else?
Children being fed.
Yep, good. Children being fed. Any others? Where?
Poverty.
Poverty, good. Okay, anything else? Paul. Paul, right on, right on. So think about Paul, because I want to jump into that example of Paul. Did Paul ever go to Africa? Not that I know of. Did he ever go to some remote location on some obscure island? He didn't. Or he did some. He made his journeys. But I'm thinking of our vision of the remote African village. He didn't. And yet, when I think of a missionary, I think of someone, a certain very patterned person. And where did I pick up these images of what makes a missionary missionary? And yet, I think about Paul. There's a guy making tents and just telling people about the Lord. So, okay, so you can be someone who makes tents and just preaches to the people group you come from. I mean, he came from the Jews and he preached to the Jews. And he preached to the Gentiles, but he preached to the Jews too. So how is it a missionary in my mind? Because I grew up believing that the best thing anyone could do with their life was to become a missionary. And by missionary, I mean out in the middle of nowhere, village, Africa. That was what in my head, and that's the highest thing you could accomplish. And so I look up, so of course any good research starts with Googling it. So what is a missionary? It's the Googles tell us, the Google gods tell us, a person sent on a religious mission, especially one sent to promote Christianity in a foreign country. So sent. This idea of being sent out. Even in the colloquial version of Google, it's someone who's sent out. And Wikipedia, a copy of this, is that to proselytize and or perform ministries of service, such as education, literacy, social justice, healthcare, and economic development. The word mission originates from 1598, when the Jesuits sent members abroad, derived from the Latin missionem. I'm sorry, I don't speak Latin. But the basic idea is this being sent out to go from some far off place. Okay, so you got to go somewhere to be a missionary, apparently. For me, I guess I still count because I came all the way from New York to South Texas, so that's pretty good. So, and when we think about missions, what's kind of talked about in the church day to day is people who are on a mission trip. So if you do day-to-day missions and live your life as a missionary, wherever you are, you're unlikely to get invited to your church to give a talk on your missions trip or your missions life. But when someone does a 4-day trip to someplace cool with some pictures of little kids, you get invited to do a slideshow of your missions trip. And then when I just Google, because I think you can learn a lot about the culture in which you live through Google, and just to hit the images, man, you just see what do people mean when I say this word. And when you look up church missions, you see exotic pictures of exotic places and pictures of globes. Because it's inherent to most understandings of missions is that you're traveling to some cool exotic place. All right. So we think about missions, we think about the old school Jesuits, we think about a small village out in the middle of nowhere. We may stretch our mind a little bit, think about some Mother Teresas and some people who lived a life of missions and service. Sometimes we'll even push our minds a little bit in our understanding of missions, and we'll little bit maybe something in our local community. But when you go, again, if I advertise to you, come to our missions conference, what would you expect to hear? You'd expect to hear someone talking about my trip here. I run a missions organization in some place in Central South America. When you go to a missions conference, they're bringing in outside speakers. And my experience with that is just funny because I feel I do my best to live as a missionary here in my day-to-day, as a missionary father, as a missionary husband, as a missionary physician, as a missionary servant, in all aspects of my life. It's the way I try to think. Any of you who've spent any time around me know I'm not perfect at that, but that is what I'm trying to do. But my experience has been, I work in a university setting so that I can be a missionary and that I have the opportunity to serve people and teach and be involved in a community of learners, and it's very important to me. And yet, when did I get asked to speak at my church's missions conference? Was when I went on a one-week missions trip to another country. And then I got invited to talk about missions. And so what did I do? Just because I'm this type of guy, I didn't talk about that at all. I didn't talk about missions. I didn't show one picture of me with a little kid. I didn't show one picture of me. You know, that's just to be, because I want us to get off some of that obsession of that. And we'll keep hammering that point. Just stop me if it's too much. And I just get distracted easily. This is pretty funny to have this up here as well. We'll just put that. This guy's been through a lot here. All right. So I get distracted easily, and I just think that's funny that I'm sitting up there in front of the room. That guy's obviously, he's been manhandled. That dummy there's probably taught more people, apparently, at least been handled by more people than I ever will. So sometimes we'll extend our understanding of missions to people who do missions in an inner city area. If you're doing rural missions, maybe, but more if you're going to inner city Philadelphia and you're doing some evangelistic work, we'll see you as that's missions. Okay, we'll expand our view of missions to not just be the person who goes to an exotic place, but also who may work at a soup kitchen, those sort of things. We'll also sometimes expand our definition of what a missionary is to people who've done great acts of service, even within their world, gone over and above. Because I think in my worldview there, what a missions was growing up in rural New York, is that if you read books, there's a classic, you know, there's the Eliot and given his life, and then his wife going and serving on the same the Pacific Island, and then you think about things like Corrie ten Boom and The Hiding Place, who, if you don't, it's kind of standard fodder for many of us, and if you don't know about her, you need to get The Hiding Place and read it. She was in the Netherlands and hid Nazis, and her family hid Nazis, and had this amazing story of redemption where Christ protected her and her family as she worked to save Jews from the Nazis. And so that's what her experience. So some of us will expand our worldview out there a little bit to people who've done great acts of service, including people like Corrie ten Boom, who saved the lives of Jews at her own self-risk in order to bring glory to the name of God. All right, so what do we know for sure? So I kind of painted a picture of the worldview of what missionaries are, and what we, even in the Christian community circles, what we consider missionaries to be. Let's go back, and whenever you've got a little bit of, I'm hearing one message, but let's go back to really, let's deconstruct that a little bit and see where that comes from. Okay, so gotta go and we're talking missions. No one's ever attended any missions talk anywhere where you didn't have to listen to the Great Commission. It's just part of it. It's like, I don't know, in comparison, whenever you go to a lecture by an emergency medicine doctor, he's going to tell you some story of how he ran into a burning building and saved some little kid's life or something. It's kind of just, certain things come together. And so when you have listened to a missions conference, you're going to hear we got to touch on the Great Commission. It's just what we do, because it's where we start. It's where we're called to send out. And it's from Matthew 28. Let's go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I've commanded you, and behold, I am with you always to the end of the age. Apparently, I'm just getting in the Christmas spirit a little bit, trying to turn holy into holly, but maybe that's a little more anything. Matthew 28. So we are called to go out. Then we are, and then I also threw, I wanted to throw, it's probably in another out of order here, but there's another Mark quote that I put in at some point. It'll probably come up at a random place. Is that so we know for sure from the Bible we're told to go out. So does that mean, where do I go out? Do I go out and do I need to go teach them to observe all that I commanded you, go and make disciples of all nations? So that means I need to go to the other end of the earth, or do I need to focus on my nation? Most of us have took that to mean we got to go out. Because there's not one person, unlikely, who felt called to be a missionary in a foreign land who didn't read this verse and say, all nations, I better get to the other end of the world. And part of this, what I've experienced is, after having traveled a lot of the world, going through my time in the United States Air Force and my deployments and some experiences with them, and then through being at UTHSCSA Global Health Programs, there's Christians everywhere that I've gone to some far-reaching lands. You'll always find some outspoken Christians who are working to spread the name of the Lord. And I've been in places in the United States in little subsets where I haven't heard the name of the Lord praised. And I think one of the places that is more rare, not as common here in Texas, you haven't faced it as much that I've experienced here, it's a little bit more free, open-minded here towards the Christian worldview, is academic medicine. So I could go across the world to Africa, and I will be welcomed at a church, and I will be able to read the Bible and proclaim the name of Christ, and we can be together and happy and enjoy one another. And I was just in Nepal on which was a unique experience. I'll teach a trauma course there. I can talk about Christ freely, and no one judges me for being an idiot or having a lack of understanding of what the world is about. But in the world of academic medicine, if I speak freely about my faith, I am considered intellectually destitute in many environments. Not always here. If you haven't faced it, good on you, but you will if you continue in academic medicine. So if you want to talk about unreached people groups, you're here, baby. You're in it. You're at the other end of the earth, okay? You're in the nations, the unreached nations that need to hear the word, okay? And so that was one of the groundbreaking things that Dr. Thomas Corson, who unfortunately can't be here, that's one of the things he taught me. And I was like, no, that's not really true. And then I was in my peer group, and I could say crazy stuff. I could say just ridiculous, absurd things that, I mean, even the philosophy of absurdness with Albert Camus. You can say just crazy stuff, and everyone's like, oh, nice, you're pretty, oh, I just shut myself up. He said, you're a pretty smart guy. But if you say something from the Bible, you're like, whoa, this guy's a fundamental nut job, and no longer can we take anything he says seriously. So you look around, you're in an unreached people group. One of the things I'm going to move into talking a little bit now, okay, so you know you're in an unreached people group, but you're not here as a missionary. You're here as a student. You're here as a worker like me. I'm here to do a job. So can I really be a missionary when that's not my title? And in everything you learn, you'll come up with some great crisis of faith in your life at some point. If you haven't already had several, you will. And what's amazing, one thing we quickly turn to what's the latest speaker say on something, or go to a colleague, but we won't. There's a lot of smart people out there thinking about these same things, who are writing these things, and have so for thousands of years. So when you start to have any doubts about something or need more understanding, start looking back, because many great men and women over the years have had these same types of questions. So when I started wondering, am I the missionary I think I am? Lo and behold, many great people have written on this, and this whole idea of vocational missions, essentially, and finding value in your vocation, which I kind of tie in together, is not just some of the Martin Luther understanding of cleaning the floor to bring glory to God if you're doing it with the right heart. Yes, some of that is true, but also with the people we interact with, you are a missionary on a day-to-day basis. So here's a quote that I like from John Stott that kind of ties in as well our lack of understanding of what it means to be involved with missions. We often give the impression that if a young Christian man is really keen for Christ, he will undoubtedly become a foreign missionary. That if he is not quite as keen, then he'll stay at home and become a pastor. That if he lacks the dedication to be a pastor, he will no doubt serve as a doctor or teacher. So I just thought that was a good one for us. I felt that kind of perception as I was growing up, and some of us haven't faced that, but I'm sure it may strike a chord with some of you. So this classic doctrine of vocation, when I use the word vocation, people equate that to job. I kind of think of it more as a calling, as a purpose. My vocation is not just something I'm doing to get a paycheck. I hope that most of us are doing what we're doing with a larger purpose or a larger understanding in mind. So God calls all Christians to the ministry regardless of the specific sphere of service into which He leads them. So you're all called into the ministry, and you're all called to be missionaries. And if you don't have that understanding, something's missing. And the next, and here's the Mark verse I was looking for before, go into all the world and proclaim the gospel to the whole creation. So this one is a little bit more, the other one is go into the other nations. This one makes me feel a little bit, this is the words from Mark, where it's the similar message of Jesus at the end before he ascends. Go into all the world and proclaim the gospel to the whole creation. Whoever believes and is baptized will be saved, but whoever does not believe will be condemned. So what we know for sure, you kind of sandwich these verses here, Matthew and Mark, is that we're called to tell everyone about Christ. It doesn't necessarily mean go across the ocean. It doesn't necessarily mean go inner city. It's wherever people need to hear the word proclaimed. Okay? And I would never, and the intention of this is not to minimize anyone who is going overseas or plans or who has that call. Those people have done, those individuals who felt that call have changed the world. And this is more of a reminder for those of us who are still here. We're all in the same realm together. There's not some person out there who has a higher calling, because there is no question that we serve an almighty God who is sovereign in all things, and that if he has you here right now, if he didn't want you here right now, you wouldn't be here right now. You may have thought, you made choices. God set you up to be here. So if you're here, do your job and do your missions work. And don't feel less if you're here than if you're overseas or doing something else. And don't forget and don't get distracted of your true calling now. So the 1 Peter 2:11 tells us, Beloved, I urge you as sojourners and exiles to abstain from passions of the flesh. I'm using ESV, but NIV will use the word alien, I think. So the word alien. If you don't feel like you're in a foreign land, open your eyes and think about the world around us. You should recognize that you are in a foreign land. If you pick up the newspaper and see the suffering and see death and destruction around you and don't feel like something's wrong, something's wrong with your heart. Because we were not made for this. We were made for something better. Because of our sin, we were separated from God. We were made for something better than this. We were made for a better place than this. And if you don't feel that you're in a foreign land, then take a good look at your heart. Because recognize, you are foreign missionaries right now because you're here. We're in a foreign land where we are called to preach to unbelievers, and one day we will go home together. Okay? So we're all foreign missionaries. So 1 Peter 2:9 tells us that you are a chosen race, a holy priesthood, a holy nation, a people for his own possession, that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who called you out of darkness into his light. So who are you? You're a chosen race, a holy priesthood, a holy nation, a people for his own possession. You are called out of darkness to do his work. We serve a sovereign God. So are you here right now to do his work? Yep. Every one of us. And I always live with this, oh no, did I make a wrong choice? Did I go to the wrong school? Should I have joined the Air Force? Which college should I go to? And my wife just gives me such a hard time because I'm always second guessing every single decision I've ever made. So this verse helps keep in mind that I'm called out of darkness. Christ has put me where I am. I know who I am if I just would read my Bible more, and I know why I'm here if I just read my Bible more. So throw out these ideas that you need to, that you've made some mistake in your life that's ruining your life. No, you're here now, and we serve an awesome and sovereign God. Acts 17:26, and he made from one man every nation of making. I need to proofread a little bit more. That's not, so I don't need that feedback at the end. No one needs to come tell me I know how to spell, right? This is what happens when you ask an ER guy. I'm always like, close enough, close enough. All right. And he made from one man every nation of making to live on all the face of the earth, having determined allotted periods and boundaries of their dwelling place. So again, with full disclosure, I do have kind of that Calvinistic. I find it took me going to Iraq and seeing how terrible the world really can be and the great evils that I saw. Because I was a happy-go-lucky med student, man. I was going to go out and change the world, and it was going to be wonderful. And I just felt if I could just tell everyone how good things were and how good you could be, we could change everyone's heart. I saw evil. I stared into the depths of evil, and I'm still sad, but I have come to peace with it because I know that we have hope. And that actually strengthened my faith ultimately, is that we have hope in Christ. I'm just so thankful to be a Christian at the end of the day, because I don't know how, after seeing the things I've seen, how many people could live with this world if they had an understanding of how evil the world can be. So what I find peace in this verse is this understanding that we are in a lot of time and a lot of space, and there's boundaries. You're here for a reason. Just hammering that point that we are here for a reason, for a certain time and place. Again, I'm a little bit of predestination guy, I'm a little bit Calvinistic, but it gives me great peace and great just peace to do my day-to-day living, not second guessing, what am I doing here? Why did I do this other thing? Why aren't I over here? Should I be overseas? No, it says right here in Acts that God has determined allotted periods and boundaries of our dwelling places. We're here for a reason. Right now, you're here where you're at in San Antonio for a reason. You're not called to serve in a place, you're called to serve in a place of a Savior. So I would just say that we're very fixated on, are you going overseas? Are you going inner city? What about today when you got out of bed? What about the person you passed on the street? What about, for me as a husband and a father, what about the interactions I had with my wife? I'm like, we're just laughing because I'm, hurriedly working on my talk this morning, and I'm like, and I'm just thinking about how many times have I been preparing for a talk where I'm like, be quiet, kids, I got to talk to prepare. And it's especially ironic when you're preparing to talk for the CMDA. Like, you can't talk right now, Kevin, I've got to prepare this. I'm talking about being a missionary in my home. I need you to be quiet. So we perseverate way too much on where we are physically doing what we're going to do, how cool it will be to go on that missions trip, where that location, the pictures from that exotic experience and exotic trip. How about thinking more about what you're doing than where you're doing it? Especially as you move around and you live in different places, you start to develop a little bit of that different worldview. So do this always in mind of the worldview, meaning not diminishing any missionaries' work across the seas, but bringing up, so right now many of us have this view of world missions as that person who's out there laying it all on the line. Raise your view of yourself and your activities. Okay, and then you start to think a little bit of, how do I do that? I'm a student, all right? So John Calvin already admitted I got a little Calvinist bend to me because I found great peace in it, and it was going to Iraq that kind of changed many things in my way. We know that men were created for the express purpose of being employed in labors of various kinds, and that no sacrifice is more pleasing to God than when every man applies diligently to his own calling and endeavors to live in such a manner as to contribute to the general advantage. Okay, again, go back, you'll find people have written all these questions we have, a lot of smart people have written on it over the years. And then we think about vocational missions. My perspective always goes back, I grew up on a dairy farm. All right, so I think, really, I can be a missionary on a dairy farm? Could I really have been a missionary when I was milking those cows and scooping cow manure and all that? Yes, because guess what? Was I interacting with people all day, every day? My brothers, my parents, the other people who worked on the farm. So if I can be a missionary as a dairy farmer, you sure as giddy up can be missionaries to your fellow students in the unreached people group of academic medicine. Okay? So God calls all Christians to ministry regardless of the specific sphere of service into which He leads them. Really want to hammer that point. So when I'm out there milking cows, if I can see myself as a missionary, you sure as goodness can be a missionary here. So I want to highlight a little bit, and I'll talk about some examples from Exodus here too, is that, so you as students, how are you missionaries? Again, no one is ever going to be able to spread the gospel better than you to your family, your friends, the people around you. The true gospel. The gospel that says, so I think many people jump to, well, every one of my friends around me knows I'm a sinner. Well, guess what? The Bible says that all of us are sinful. You should expect me to be sinful. The only difference is I'm saved by the blood of Christ. That's the only difference, okay? So if you say, well, you just need to have a better view of the Bible than if you think, oh, they're going to see my sin and not want to listen to what I'm saying. But listen up. Everybody, if you think about academic medicine, we are too good to stop and listen to the preacher preaching on the street. We're very quick to get to ESPN and skip over the guy preaching on TV. Our co-students, the people, the teachers above us, they are not going to listen to evangelists, but they will listen to you if you work hard and have a smile on your face and preach the love of Christ through all you do. Amen. So unlike anybody else around you, you can be a missionary where you're at now. So as students, there's no better missionary to other medical students than you. So keep that in mind, all right? Because you are the ones who can stand in the gap for these folks. I just wanted to bring up too is that, and God will call you, you will have these amazing experiences where God will call you out. But even if you don't, it's good enough that you're living as a Christian and doing excellence in your work as a student, as wherever you work here, and wherever you work in the city, or in San Antonio, or in Texas. So in Exodus, there's an example of these two folks I just want to mention. Then the king of Egypt said to the Hebrew midwives, one of whom was named Shiphrah and the other Puah, when you serve as a midwife to the Hebrew women and see them on the birth stool, if it is a son you shall kill him, but if it is a daughter she shall live. But the midwives feared God and did not do as the king of Egypt commanded them. So this is a great example of how there's going to be specific times where because you're Christian and because you're just doing your job, you're going to stand up and do the right thing for people, and God will bless you, and God brought you into that time and place. All right, one more minute here. So again, as you think about what it means of unreached people group, and you see that picture in your mind, I'm just here to say you're in an unreached people group wherever you're at. Now, I use the example of academic medicine, but wherever you're at, no one's going to listen to the words of an evangelist better, or the words of the Bible better, than watching you live your life and the words you say and the things you do. And that one day, just through your good example, they will have a better view of Christianity, and you will have the chance to minister to them. So you're an unreached people group. Continue to be missionaries. Go forward and do great things. All right, that's all I got. And the question, what am I supposed to do with my life? I got cut off a little bit there, but it's a cat saying, what am I supposed to do with my 9 lives? What are you supposed to do with your life? You're supposed to be a missionary, wherever you are and whatever you do.
Awesome.
All right. Amen.